Welcome everyone to ideaXme, the show that interviews the world's trailblazers and innovators moving the human story forward. I'm Tali Ramsey, an ideaXme guest contributor and a writer specializing in art, technology and culture. Today I'm joined by Tim Reichel, ideaXme's new diversity officer. So Tim, who are you?
Hi, well, I'm Tim. I'm a student here in Berlin. My major is English Studies and my minor is Media and Communication Studies. And my focus is on diversity, meaning that my focus is on cultural studies, which I would say is basically the study of diversity. It's about society, culture, and power relations in society. And cultural studies sort of tries to understand how power dynamics play a role in cultural processes. And I'm also, I guess, an activist here in Berlin. I'm in the queer group of Amnesty International, and I'm also the ideaXme diversity officer.
So what led you to choosing a career path in diversity?
Well, again, as I've said, in my studies, I've come across this field of cultural studies, which has inspired me to take a closer look at how society works and how power plays an important role in culture. I also identify as a member of the queer community. So I've always, my entire life, I've had a couple of questions about this world and society that we live in. And I guess I've come a long way, and now I'm here where I want to spend my time, exploring this idea of diversity. And I guess also everyone looks, I think, for something that's larger than, him or herself, and that they think it's, worth the time that they want to dedicate to it. So that's why I have chosen diversity for me, because I find it fascinating. And also, I think that society has changed, especially in the Western world. We've seen this paradigm shift in our culture, and diversity is more visible now, I would argue, than it's ever been before. And I don't know, right now is just the time to jump on the bandwagon and do it.
So you say that diversity now, we're in a time where it's really coming to the forefront of society. So in that case, how do you think that innovation and diversity work together? Do you think there's an intersection there?
Yeah, well, great question. I definitely think that there is an intersection there. I believe, well, it's quite simple to me, at least. I think that if people come from different backgrounds, different, ways of life, they also have different, I guess, life philosophies, different ways of seeing the world, of interpreting things, because reality, sort of comes into existence in our heads. So if we sort of ask people of different communities and different groups to come to the table and voice their opinions and bring their ideas, I think that this is great in order to evaluate things from different perspectives. We get different ideas, different solutions, and I guess that it is this synthesis of ideas, of different ideas, that creates innovation. And as I said, we live in a culture and in a time now where diversity is a thing. People are talking about it, and it's great to open that door and to let everyone in and let everyone have their seat at the table, so we can have this productive discussion to come up with something new by means of combining ideas from different groups. And that's why I think diversity and innovation go hand in hand, actually.
How do you envision the role of diversity progressing in the future in terms of society and business?
I think, that's a very interesting question. And I think there are different concepts, scholarly concepts, to actually address this topic. For example, there is this idea of utopias in scholarship, and utopias, well, I guess that kind of, strand of scholarship approaches the idea of diversity in the sense that they say, well, if we choose ethnicity, for example, that these scholars say, well, the utopia would be that we don't see skin color anymore, and everyone is the same. And I mean, we have to acknowledge that we do see skin color in this day and age, and saying otherwise is just a lie. And a utopia would mean that we don't make this difference anymore. We don't see this difference. But the problem with that is that we erase the culture that has, that has sort of come from this difference, because different ethnic groups, for example, have different cultures. And if we stop seeing a difference, then we would also have to raise this culture that is part of this difference. And basic subjectivity theory actually shows that in order to understand ourselves and to create an identity that is our own and that of our group, we always have to sort of create the other in order to understand ourselves. There's just no way around this process. And so there's an inherent tension in this, because there's always the other. And it's dangerous, because if the other becomes the enemy, then we have the situation that we're in right now, where we see riots in the streets and protests against police brutality. But the future is this, I think. There's this concept of agonism and antagonism. So this process of othering, we can't undo this, but we have to accept it. But the thing is that antagonism says that oftentimes we create this enemy, the other is our enemy and has all the bad qualities that we don't see in ourselves. But agonism argues that because we can never get rid of this conception of I and the other, we can stop seeing the other as our enemy, but as an opponent, as someone worthy of having negotiation with. And so if we accept that, and if we negotiate with people, and if we get everyone to the table and accept each other and have a productive discussion, which there will always be tension in that, but if we can achieve that, then that's really the only thing that we can do. And that's the future of diversity for me, is that we need to work on more tolerant attitudes between groups.
So in terms of like your career and your future goals, if you could meet one person, either dead or alive, who would you most like to meet and why?
Oh, that's a good question. Actually, well, that's a hard question, actually. Talking about diversity, we're talking about so many different groups and people with their ideas. I guess I would really like to meet Judith Butler, for example, who is a professor and who at the university in Berkeley. And she's come up with this concept of performativity, which it's been a game changer, to be honest, because she argues that, for example, gender is performative, meaning that there's not a stable gender core. So just because we are born with a body and then sort of this body is sort of sexed by society, meaning the sex is sort of ascribed to the body, then everyone assumes that this gender is a stable part of our identity, which she shows that it's not. It's just the expression, the movements and the way we dress and the way we talk and the relations between the genders that creates this illusion of the stable gender, when it's actually not. It's a social construct. And then she's coined this term, the heterosexual matrix, which she shows that sex, gender, and sexuality are connected in this power structure that creates, I guess, the gender norms that we have now, and also, I guess, heterosexuality in the sense. And I would really like to talk to her to understand a little bit more about it. And on a personal level, I also think that Florence Welch, the artist, the singer, has a lot to say, and we can learn a lot from her about empathy and self-love, and I think she has an interesting take on the transformative power of art. So yes.
Okay, that's really interesting. Two really interesting people to sit down with. So why are you working on this initiative with ideaXme in particular?
ideaXme's, I guess, philosophy is to move the human story forward. And all these different pioneers that are, out in the world, who come from different groups, it's important to get everyone to the table, as I've said before, and to sort of have a seat for everyone at the table so that they can bring their ideas and voice their opinions. And I think that ideaXme is the perfect place to promote this idea of diversity. And I believe that ideaXme is already diverse because of all the different members and collaborators. But the thing is this, just because something is diverse, that doesn't necessarily mean that this potential has been activated yet. but there is this energy, not just in ideaXme, but in the world right now, in Western culture. And that's an energy that I think that if this energy is harnessed correctly, we can really move the human story forward with you know, if we just go with the flow of this time and on the culture. And I believe that if we emphasize that and we sort of bring that to the fore, we can create great change. And that's why I think that ideaXme is the perfect place for that.
Yeah, it sounds like a really good match in terms of moving the human story forward in terms of diversity.
Yeah.
So thank you, Tim, and we look forward to seeing your work with ideaXme.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.